All right, well, welcome everyone. We're going to get started, and I think we're going to go ahead and start off with introductions. You guys ready with that? We have a microphone that we're going to pass around. Let's go ahead and start with the staff on the front row first.
Gary Miller, Incite staff. Doug Anderson, Incite staff.
Kendall Linares, Incite staff.
Cam Ferrara, Incite staff.
Susie Gibson, Incite staff.
Jen Center, Incite staff.
Jennifer Johnson.
Janet Steele, Albany Area Chamber of Commerce.
John Pascone, Albany Millersburg Economic Development Corp.
Francis Alvarado with Oregon Human Development Corporation.
Jefferson Mildeberger, Kaiser Permanente.
Tom Earhart with the Employment Department.
Creel Gray, lead organizer of IBEW.
Munger Joe, president of Central Labor Council.
Good afternoon, Chad Freeman, SEDCOR.
Alan Springer, Yamhill County Commissioner.
Johnny Mack, Chemeketa Community College.
Jason Kovac, Linn Benson Community College.
And Patrice Altenhofen, Family Building Blocks.
Hello, Gail Clampy, Cascade Employers Association.
I'm Seth Christensen with NEI.
Alvin Elbert, ARE Manufacturing.
Jim Sapienza, Salem Health and West Valley Hospital.
Larry Moore, Westview Products.
Will Tucker, Linn County Commissioner.
Martha Dodsworth, Vocational Rehabilitation.
Michael Fowler, Cabinet Door Service.
Dean Craig, Personnel Source.
Zach Hill, Donna's Wealth Management.
Georgia Conrad, Incite staff.
Katie Stubblefield, Incite staff.
Then we have Jenny really hiding back there behind the monitors. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Our intention is to give you an overview of this whole thing. Who we are, what we do, and your role and function within that. We're not going to dive deeply into the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. That will be in forthcoming meetings where you're trying to soak that information in terms of the federal legislation that we operate under. But today we're trying to give you an overview so you can get a feel for the type of organization that we are and the type of work that we do throughout our region, which now is Linn, Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties. So I wanted to go over the Workforce Board vision with you. That is to promote economic growth through relocation and inspire local business to reach their full potential. The mission is to be the visionary driver of WIOA investments throughout this region. The method, by convening a diverse group of public and private partners to effectively align resources and support innovative skills training programs. Our vision for Incite, and we're going to go through the structure a little bit later. I'm just trying to give you the feel for our visions and our missions. Our vision for Incite is communities where business and people come together to help each other thrive. For me, a vision statement is something that can be completed, but will never be finished. Or it can be done, but will never be complete, right? So it always keeps us moving forward. Our mission is to seek out and align resources advancing innovative workforce solutions. And the way we do that is through collaborative relationships with public and private partners promoting effective skills training. Our values are to create opportunity to support the dignity of work, advance innovation through creative system design, inspire collaboration by influencing a culture of interdependence, empower community through personal and professional development, celebrate together to cultivate meaningful relationships. That's the values that we that we live by. And hopefully what you'll see throughout the afternoon here is the things that we do that point at that. We know that we're serving our community to help businesses grow and prosper and to help the job seeker connect well in the working world. Those are the types of things that we want to accomplish, and so as you get your head around all these facets of what we do, that's our aim, that's our goal. So I'm going to turn this over now to Pam, correct?
Oregon's average all-industry wage is close to where it was in 1976. Oregon has the second lowest graduation rate in the country. Rural Oregon is not yet rebounding from recession job losses. Who is working to address these kinds of challenges? Local workforce boards. Every county in Oregon is represented by a local workforce board. These business-led partnerships are primarily funded through the Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act and chartered by the governor to better direct public workforce investments for talent development, job creation, and business competitiveness. The boards set the convening table and bring together private business with partners from local government, education, organized labor, economic development, and community-based organizations. The primary goal is to build a workforce system that is flexible, customer-focused, and responsive to local needs. They elevate the voice of business to articulate workforce needs and inform investments and strategies to meet those needs and to ensure alignment and the efficient use of resources to achieve better outcomes. Supply skills development so workers can fill current and emerging high-wage, high-demand jobs. Support youth so they have the academic and core competencies required by employers. Respond to the needs of employers so they have the skilled workers they need. Using labor market data and analysis, local workforce boards broker services in their communities to meet these goals. Services and investments are organized around sector partnerships, which target regional industries essential to local economies. Local boards invest in WorkSource Oregon as the primary vehicle for delivering workforce services across the state. In partnership with the Oregon Employment Department and other agencies, WorkSource Oregon helps customers learn new skills, find employment, and progress in careers, while also assisting employers with recruitment and retention of qualified, skilled employees. The majority of youth served are low income, with complex barriers to employment. Youth services connect participants to career opportunities, training, and one-on-one support in order to prepare them for post-secondary education and career ladder employment. Youth gain the essential skills needed to be successful and self-sufficient. Oregon's local workforce boards are essential to economic prosperity and thriving communities. They are committed to continuous improvement and are accountable for providing high-performing systems that yield a maximum return on investment. Investing in human potential, responding to the needs of business, creating opportunities for growth. Find out more at OregonWFPartnership.org.
I'm Pam Ferrara, and I am the research analyst at Incite, and my job is to talk a little bit about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA, and the title of my talk is WIOA 101. It's a huge subject. I had a show and tell, but it weighed a half a ton, so I didn't bring it downstairs. The law itself is about that thick, and the draft regulations, which we just got in April, are about that thick. Johnny's nodding his head, he's seen them. So literally since last July, a year ago July, we have been reading and reading and reading and asking each other questions and trying to wrap our minds around the new statute that we have to work under. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit, briefly, a little bit about the history of workforce legislation, a little bit about funding, a little bit about how WIOA, that's the acronym, came to be, and a bit about the board, the workforce board under WIOA. The new statute was passed in July of 2014, and we have draft regulations, and as I'm sure you all know, that when the statute gets passed, the Federal Department of Labor gets to interpret it, and that's their regulations. And they plan on giving us final regulations in January. So what's going on right now is that we're all reading them and we're giving the Federal Department of Labor our opinion on some of the regs. So a little bit about the history of workforce legislation. It's got a long history. The first program that had a name was the Manpower Act, if you can imagine that, in the 1960s under President Kennedy. Then we got the comprehensive, I promised myself I'm not going to use any acronyms, so the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, CETA, under President Carter. And then under President Reagan, we got the Job Training and Partnership Act, better known as JIPTA. Some of you folks I know remember JIPTA. And then under President Clinton in 1998, we got the Workforce Investment Act. Well, the Workforce Investment Act was supposed to be, quote unquote, reauthorized every 5 years. Well, we went 16 years and didn't hear anything until last spring. So I have a little more to tell you about that in a minute. I have one slide that I want to show you, and it's the declining funding, because money's important. So the total budget, the total budget for workforce funding peaked in the late 70s, and it's been downhill ever since. And there you go, that's what it looks like. So we are doing more with less, there's no doubt about that. The total budget currently for the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act for all 50 states is about $2.8 billion. That's a tiny amount of money in the scheme of things. Gary and I tried to divide it, and it's got an awful lot of zeros to divide it. So because the federal budget is $3.5 trillion, so what goes to workforce is less than 0.1%. So we think if we put enough zeros to it. So it's very, very tiny. Oregon receives $34 million of that money. The state of Oregon, the community colleges and workforce development, except they have some new acronyms now. You know, you've got an acronym dictionary to keep yourself amused. So the two new ones are probably in there. But anyway, better known as CCWD, they are allowed to take, of that $33 million that we get, 5% they take for their admin. They're allowed to take another 10% for the governor's reserve. That usually comes back to us, to all the workforce boards in various ways and different grant opportunities. So we usually see a little bit of that. And then 25% of the dislocated worker funding gets held back for rapid response activities. And that's when a business closes and folks go out, the employment department and our folks go out and help them. So that's how the money gets divvied up. That money, after the state takes their share, what is left is divided now among, well, starting on July 1, will be divided among 9 workforce boards, because we just went from 7 to 9, so we've got 2 new ones. And we receive $4 million-ish, is what I have written down. Gary, is that about 5? Okay, 5, so we get about $5 million. So that's just a real quick, broad overview of the funding. But the big one is the declining funding. It's just been very noticeable. I want to talk just a little bit about how WIOA came to be. So years went by and everybody talked about WIA being reauthorized and nothing happened. And then all of a sudden in the spring of 2014, 2 bills popped up in the Congress. One was they were both very partisan. One was a Republican bill and one was a Democratic bill. And the Republican bill, I actually looked at both of them. They were really fascinating. We got all kinds of emails on them. And the Republican bill literally took over 100 different workforce programs and put them all into one big pot. Well, we knew that probably wouldn't happen. The Democratic bill kind of tweaked WIA a little bit. So then this is really how it happened, and it felt that it happened this way. Everything kind of went underground, and then all of a sudden in July we started getting emails, and we got a new statute, and it was passed overwhelmingly in the Senate and the House with bipartisan majorities. So that's a little bit about how it happened. The folks that remember WIA back in 1998 say it happened the same way. It kind of all of a sudden just popped up, and there it was signed and done. It's kind of interesting. Not surprisingly, the major themes of the new legislation of WIOA mirror some of the back and forth partisanship that went on with the 2 partisan bills. And the major one was we have some fairly big realignment going on of workforce programs. And the 2 big ones in the state, and you all are going to have the fascinating task of trying to figure out how to do this, is aligning the vocational rehabilitation jobs program and the TANF, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, which is the welfare jobs program, with all of the things that we do. So those are the two big ones. So that Republican partisan bill, they got some of what they wanted. We have got some fairly big realignment. There's actually one other really interesting piece of realignment that you will all have to work out and see how it's going to get accomplished. And that is the Schenectady Community College in Linn now, of course, which is in our new area. They have adult basic ed programs, and they are remedial programs for folks that apply to the community college but need remedial work in math and English. The Workforce Board will now be looking at those programs to make sure that they are aligned with everything that the Workforce Board does. So that's some major realignment that's going on. I want to talk just briefly about a couple more important changes in the WIOA legislation from the one that we were previously under, and a big emphasis on serving folks with disabilities, folks who are low income, and those who are basic skills deficient. So that's a new emphasis. And another new emphasis in our youth programs, and this is really reflective of all of the news that I know you've all read and know about, especially older youth, 18 to 24 or so, with very little work experience. So it's reflective of this new demographic that we have to deal with. And so what the WIOA legislation does is it mandates that 75% of all of the youth in our programs have to be out of school youth, because those are the kids, presumably, who need the most help. So that's new. Before it was, Katie, 50? Yeah, it was 50 before. We're pretty good. We're up there, but there are some programs that are going to have to make some major readjustments. So that was a big change in WIOA. Another interesting change in WIOA, the nice little video told you about the business. Business is the 50% plus one on our board. There's going to be an effort on the Federal Department of Labor to write a rule having to do with measuring our success at business engagement. We don't have any idea what that looks like yet, so we will know in January. So stay tuned for that one, it will be interesting. And then the biggest piece is a very expanded role for the Workforce Board. In the original WIA legislation, the board duties took up about 2 pages. In the new one, it takes up 7. So you will all be very busy. I just made a list. I went through the law from beginning to end and made a list of all of the board shall, the board must, the board may, and it's 7 pages long. So you all will be very, very busy over the next couple of years. So I am happy to take questions. I hope I can answer them. And save them for later if you want to. I will be here.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Kendall Linares, and I'm the Director of Business Engagement for Incite. And in August, I would have been with the organization 5 years. So I thought it would be really important for me to take you back a little bit in the kind of journey that business engagement's had over that 5 years, so you can understand how we got to where we are today. So when I walked in the door in 2010, we had a lot of funding on the table. The business engagement activities were fairly siloed and kind of limited to consortia activities, not a lot of incumbent worker training, and some specialty projects that we would send out into a request for proposal annually. Fast forward a couple of years, the state took away the dollars we were using to support those types of activities, so we had to begin to get really creative about how we were going to sustain that type of level of business engagement. And in that process, the idea of creating a sustainable training network within the community through our consortiums was born. And then shortly after that, a Department of Labor solicitation came out for the Make It in America Grant Challenge, and we submitted a proposal in conjunction with our economic development partners, FedCorps and Mid-Willamette Council of Governments, as well as Oregon Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and then crossed our fingers for about 6 months to see if we got it. And in October of 2013, we got word that we received those grant funds, and it put us in a prime position to restructure consortia, bring some value back to the table, add incumbent worker training back into the mix, and really focus on some serious good business engagement. So that brings us up currently and where we're at and kind of what we're doing. In putting this presentation together for you, I really was thoughtful about the best case scenario for business engagement, and so I'd like to show you a little video that is a prime example of how, and my wish, that we could engage with every single business on this level and provide them the results. So we're going to go ahead and play a video for you.
Hello, this is Gary Connor with Linn Enterprise Training. We are proud to announce the release of a DVD that chronicles the transformation of a small Salem, Oregon company, American Easel. Tammy and Kyle, the owners, invited 15 people from all over the United States to come and help transform their company. We call them the Dream Team. We had team members from all over the United States, from Las Vegas, from New York. We had team members who had never been in the state of Oregon before, but we invited them because of their history of being lean disciples within their own company. American Easel really does make artist easels, but they also make the panels that artists paint on. These panels replace the traditional stretched canvas panels that artists would normally paint on, and they produce a higher quality product. This project was funded primarily by Job Growers Incorporated, a Salem-based nonprofit organization committed to strengthening the Oregon economy, particularly those businesses in the Marion, Polk, Yamhill counties of the Mid-Willamette Valley. Because of their support, we were able to rent a 44-foot trailer and bring it in as a Kaizen facilitation room, and the team got to work on Monday morning, February 28, 2012, beginning to transform this family-owned business. While the team's objectives included the application of some of the higher order tools in the lean manufacturing toolbox, such as tack time, one-piece flow and pull systems, there was just an overwhelming need to get the place cleaned up. So we began with the application of tools such as setup reduction and 5S, or workplace organization. Next came the value stream mapping, or workplace observations, where we timed every operation in their manufacturing process. The team wasn't looking simply for the operator and machine cycle times, but they were also looking for evidence of waste in the process, unnecessary motion, unnecessary transportation, redundancy, over-processing, all of the forms of waste identified by Shigeo Shingo. Once the value stream map was complete, the team began brainstorming and determining ways of testing and simulating their ideas for improvement. The team built fixtures and material handling devices in an effort to reduce redundant handling. They redesigned and rebuilt the racking systems to provide point-of-view storage while minimizing inventory. Everyone pitched in to help clean up. There was no shortage of things to throw away, to recycle, or donate. There were a few moments of humor, emotion, drama, and even moments of terror.
Are they taking the toilet away? I was supposed to be here for tomorrow noon. I told you about my special problem, didn't I? Well, that's correct. I think he knows about it. He's the one that emptied that out. I think he knows all about your problem.
There were moments of elation and emotional meltdowns. Much to the credit of the team at American Easel, their willingness to try techniques not familiar to them, and to the Dream Team's dedication and volunteer spirit, this company had a remarkable improvement. Truckloads of material were hauled away or donated in an effort to clean up this shop in order to provide an environment that fostered waste-free manufacturing. A new plant layout required the relocation of some equipment in order to minimize the distance traveled between operations. Input from the operators helped us design a new finished goods storage system and a way to store fixtures that would provide a much safer and more productive working environment. One of the keys to sustainment is participation by the people who actually do the work, and you can just see their satisfaction when they saw the result of their effort. Customers are also seeing the benefit of this newly revamped inventory system. It's hard to believe that all these changes took place in just 5 days, but with the help of this volunteer Dream Team, we were able to accomplish amazing results. Not only has the workplace been transformed into a safer, more productive environment, but the company is also recognizing record profits and sales numbers since this event. The before and after pictures are overwhelming, but they only tell part of the story. The real satisfaction comes from knowing that we are playing a part in saving American jobs and providing a financial future for our families.
That particular kind of success story is what we'd like to see every time we engage with business on some level. I mean, all business has different needs. This particular company, a consortium member, came to me in 2011 and said, hey, I have this company, they're very good friends of mine, and they just were taken on by Amazon, and I'm afraid it's going to bury them. So I spent 6 months convincing them to apply for the workforce training funds that we offered at the state level at that time. And they did, and the Dream Team was born, and 3 years later, they have tripled their profits year after year. So they're doing really, really well, and they've added 3 or 4 staff now, and the husband and wife team are now taking more vacations. So it's a good thing, it's a win-win for everyone. So I wanted to show you that just so you understand that the level of engagement we try to have with businesses is pretty deep. I like to go in, Susie likes to go in and listen to what they really need, because honestly, if we can't provide it, we can probably figure out who can. So whether it's our economic development partners, Business Oregon, other resources, even outside of training and workforce development, we really, really want to understand what's going on with our businesses and our community and support them the best way that we can. So now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the specific things we do. You've heard me throw out words like consortia. That is a big part of our business engagement activities. We have 3 groups and support a 4th that's kind of on hiatus right now. But we have the Mid-Willamette High Performance Consortium. We've got about 20 to 25, depending on the quarter, really dedicated members that go to those quarterly meetings and participate by sharing with each other, networking, best practices, all of that good stuff. And we also put an annual training calendar together for those guys. We also have what used to be our food processors group. It's the oldest consortium that we supported. They started back in 2002. This year we made a change with the Make It in America grant that we got, and we changed them to human resources and manufacturing. That broadened that scope a little bit. Anybody could come share their common issues, and we thought that it would be good to do that. So we rebranded both of those guys. They have new logos, new marketing materials, all that good stuff, so we can continue to promote this within the community. We also have a new steering committee, and that's something a couple of years ago when we were still in the height of the recession, a lot of turnover. The steering committee that I inherited basically when I came into the organization had kind of gone away over time. And so also with this grant, we reestablished the steering committee, which really puts business in the driver's seat. So I'm not trying to make decisions for everybody. They're guiding those decisions for me, which is wonderful for me. It takes a lot of pressure off, and we know we're doing the right things. They're telling us what they want us to do. Very, very important. The other thing that came back in the last 2 years is incumbent worker training. It's often, when we're talking about federal funding, not something very focused on, which is incredibly frustrating to me, and I know that business people in the room understand why. It's frustrating to me and frustrating to them. If we're scaling people up from within an organization, we're creating entry-level opportunity on the bottom, and we're strengthening those organizations from within. And often I don't have the funding to do that. So with the Make It in America grant, we've trained people in the last 2 years in 6 Sigma Green Belt and Black Belts. Larry actually just took his test yesterday for a Black Belt. Yay! We also have project management people, human resource certification, geometric dimension and tolerancing, which is a metals manufacturing training. And we've also done quality auditor training as well for our folks that are trying to get through ISO. And the idea behind those trainings and certifications is that those people will then train other consortium members and business people in the community, so we can create that kind of sustainable training network. And it offers us an opportunity to not have to always rely on funding and the fluctuation in funding. So that's some of the good work that we're doing, but I did want to bring Susie out because she really, to me, is the best in the state at on-the-job training program. And I know often in board meetings there are a lot of questions surrounding OJTs, so she's going to talk to you a little bit about that.
Thank you. I want to go over a little bit about the OJT program because I get a lot of questions and people are confused about what it is and how it works. The on-the-job training program is a program designed for businesses in mind to reimburse you for the costs, the extraordinary cost of hiring and bringing on somebody that maybe needs a little extra training. What we can do is help you. We do a reimbursement. A training plan is put together for you. Once you find your employee, you identify the employee, we meet with them, we sit down and see where the gap is in employment. We write a training plan based upon what you give us, your feedback. I'm not telling you how to train. You tell us what you need. We basically write a contract with you, and we do a 50% reimbursement of those wages during the training plan, up to a certain dollar amount. It depends on the grant we usually have. Last year we had 4 different grants, so we place them in the best one that works for your company and get them skilled up. We can do that for entry level on medium. They don't have to be, I think the misperception is that they have to be an entry level employee. That's not true. They can be somebody who is skilled, who's just maybe lacking one of the skills you need. You can place them on an OJT. Last year we did 215 of these. We're still working on it. And we will be going forward. I am transitioning the program to ResCare. They will be taking over as of July 1st, but I will be available for any questions going forward if you need, because I will be overseeing our monitoring program. Any questions about the program? Yeah.
So how much money is available per position? Does it depend on what the position is, or is it?
It depends on the grant that they qualify for. Like I said, last year we had 4 different grants. Anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. We did 87 OJTs for the Make in America grant last year, and that was a $5,000 reimbursement. In addition to, we did credentialing for each one of those individuals up to $2,500. Unfortunately, that grant just ended. But like I said, it's constantly evolving and changing what grants we do have. Right now, the grant we're working under is a $3,000 reimbursement.
And what's the turnaround time on that? Once the paperwork is submitted?
It's real quick. So yeah, so every company is a little bit different. Some want me really involved, and some want me to stay away till they find their employee. So I'll just say, as soon as you identify your employee and you get the information over to me, it takes about 2 days. We meet with them right away. We identify that they're enrolled with us. We're enrolled with WorkSource Oregon. We identify their skills gap. We write it up and we sign it. We don't want to hold you guys up at all, so we're very, very sure to be out there ASAP. 1 to 2 days max.
But cash in the hands of the employer, how long is that?
It's doing the training plan is about 90 days. So what happens is we place them on the training plan the first day of work. At the end of approximately 90 days, unless they have a larger training gap, we can extend it. 90 days is the invoicing period. And then we do also track them up to 6 months. So there is a requirement that, we want to make sure the employers are good employers and that they're doing the right thing by our employees. So once we sign up an employer, there's an eligibility requirement, and we'll check with you, and it's just some basic questions to make sure that you can do it. We will place them on the training plan. We'll monitor them halfway through. At the end of 90 days, you're invoiced and paid, and it goes very quickly. You're going to get it out within a week, generally. And then at the end of 6 months, we check for retention and make sure that they're still there. And if you fall below a certain retention, the company itself will take a look at it.
And is there a limit? How many people per business?
No, there's no limit this time. We've never had to stop anybody. I mean, it's fund-based. We run out of funds, you don't have to say we're out of funds. But as long as you're hiring people who need work and you're skilling them up, we're not going to stop you.
Does that have to be in the manufacturing sector?
Does not. That is our focus. That is our focus. But if you're bringing somebody on and skilling them up and they're in a different, absolutely. It's not treating people to work. That's our goal. Any other question?
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Anderson. I am the Director of Adult Impact for Incite Incorporated. So WIOA defines the hub of the adult system as the one-stop center. And in Oregon, we call the one-stop center our WorkSource Oregon centers. In those centers, we assist job seekers and employers to connect those two resources to each other. So in our 4 counties that we are currently serving, with Linn being adopted into our region, we have 6 WorkSource centers. One in Salem, Woodburn, McMinnville. We have one in Dallas, as well as Albany and Lebanon. Our primary partner in the WorkSource Oregon Center is the Oregon Employment Department. But because we want it to be a true one-stop center, we do have multiple partners, and they include DHS, TANF, and Jobs Plus, vocational rehabilitation, Experience Works, Easter Seals, and Veteran Services. And then we do have partners that are unique to the community they serve. We welcome people that are looking to assist people to find jobs, but also address the barriers that those individuals have to finding employment. The WorkSource Oregon mission is to effectively respond to workforce challenges through high-quality service to individuals and businesses, resulting in job retention, attainment, and advancement. I'd like to tell you a little bit of the history of Incite and the services that we provide in the WorkSource Center. From 2010 to 2014, we decided as a workforce board that we would provide services in the center. So the center staff actually were Incite employees at the time of their job growth. We would meet with customers, we would process payments. And then in 2013, the governor issued an executive order asking local workforce boards to contract out services through a request for proposal competitive process. And so in 2014, we got together members from our board to be on a selection process, and they selected ResCare Incorporated to provide services in the 4 WorkSource centers in Marion, Polk and Yamhill County. This year, I have the privilege to work with an additional 2 WorkSource centers with the adoption of Linn County in Albany and in Lebanon. And so I'm looking forward to work with Community Services Consortium as a service provider in Linn County. The services that we offer in the WorkSource Center, I'd like to talk a little bit about those business services. Through our Oregon Employment Department partner, we offer customized recruitment. So when a business contacts WorkSource Oregon, we send an individual out with Oregon Employment Department. They go to the employer, they visit the site, and they basically interview and figure out what is the need of that employer, and then we do our best to match them to the customers that we have, the job seekers that are in the WorkSource Center. So when someone in Oregon receives a letter to be on unemployment, they are asked to go to a WorkSource Oregon Center to register. So we have access to those individuals, and we connect that talent pool with what the employers are looking for. And we do that in partnership with our Oregon Employment Department. So the other services that are available is an employer or a business can post job listings with our IMAX skills system. They also have access to on-the-job training, as you've heard from Susie. And an employer can utilize our facility. So if an employer has positions that they're looking to hire for and they need a facility to do that recruitment event, they can contact our staff and they can use one of our rooms to facilitate that process. So some of the statistics this last year, approximately 14,000 people visited a WorkSource Oregon Center in Marion, Polk and Yamhill County. Out of those 14,000, 850 worked one-on-one with one of the staff that we've hired specifically with ResCare this last year. And out of that 850, 250 either received an OJT or a vocational scholarship. If someone goes to the WorkSource Center and through interview, evaluation, it is determined that that individual needs training to be employable and to get that job, to get onto that career path, we do have vocational scholarship funds to the amount of $2,500 that we provide to somebody to go to school and get the training that they're needing in order to be employable. One of the things that I'd like to touch on just a little bit here is the WorkSource Oregon operational standards. In the last 9 months, executive directors, managers, supervisors, and frontline staff have come together to develop a WorkSource Oregon standard so that we can start talking about WorkSource Oregon as a system. What we found over the last few years is that it really depended on what center you went to, what level of service, what services were being provided, and we really couldn't talk at a state level as a system. And so we recognized that that was something that was important that we needed to do. So the number one reason that that is important is because we want to have consistent service. Whether you're in Portland or whether you're in Medford, when you walk into a WorkSource Oregon Center, you know what services are available, the workshops that are available, and we have a basic level of expectation across the state. The second reason, as I referred briefly to, is that we would like to be able to talk at a statewide level as a system, a consistent system, so that when our executive directors and CEOs of local workforce boards are talking at a statewide level to legislature, at times where we have funding that we're asking for, we can say we have a system, we have a consistent level of services. So in every region, or every area, we have a local leadership team, and that leadership team is made up of managers and supervisors from our Oregon Employment Department partners, as well as from our service providers. I also attend those meetings as a representative of the local workforce board. We convene that group, but the role of that group is to implement the WSO standards over the next year so that we're meeting that expectation. So that when a customer walks into the WorkSource Center, within 1 minute they're being greeted. Within 15 minutes, they're in front of the person that they came to see, because we want to make sure that every Oregonian that walks in the WorkSource Center, when they leave, they understand that they received the value-added service. Hopefully what they were expecting to receive, but also more. We want it, as the unemployment rate goes down, we want to be relevant to the community. We want to have a place that people can come to look for jobs, to look for training opportunities, and to access the resources so that WorkSource Oregon is serving as the true one-stop that we would like them to be. So our local leadership team is convening groups. We're looking at convening frontline staff so that we can figure out how to implement, how we can make sure that we're serving our customers to the best of our ability, our customer to the job seeker, but also our customer to the businesses. We consider our system a pull system. We are asking businesses through our consortia, through our board, and through other avenues, what are your needs for a workforce? How can we meet those needs? And then we're doing our best to align with sector strategies and emphasizing training programs that train individuals to have those skills that are meeting the needs of businesses. So if anyone would like to have a tour of a WorkSource Oregon Center, you're more than welcome to contact me or contact Jenny. She'll go ahead and arrange that for you, and we'll take you on a tour. It'll be my pleasure to introduce you to our staff and give you a tour and let you know of some of the resources and things that we have available. Does anybody have any questions I can answer for you about WorkSource Oregon? Anything I've covered? Excellent. Go ahead.
Doug, can you just give an example of, sorry, we got a microphone now. Just was wondering if you could give an example of a typical job seeker that Incite ends up touching inside the WorkSource Center.
Okay.
As I understand it, we don't touch them all.
We don't touch them all. Yes, and so, like I was saying, there's the 14,000 that access our system in some way. And then there's the 850 that go to an orientation that it's determined that they need to work one-on-one with one of our career counselors. ResCare calls them talent development specialists. And so part of that process is they'll meet one-on-one, they'll develop an individual employment plan, we call it an IEP, and at that point, it'll be determined what that participant needs. Maybe they need assistance with a resume, or maybe we can recommend that they go to one of our workshop series. And it may be determined that their career plan says this person needs training. And so they'll submit an application for one of our vocational scholarships, also called an individual training account, and we'll issue that. The amount of the scholarship varies depending on funding, but we've been pretty consistent at $2,500. So for some of the short-term trainings, that amount will cover the whole. For others, it's just a start. But our staff will work with them. They will meet with them on a regular basis, and hopefully eventually, after training, they'll be working with them to actually find employment. Any other questions I can answer? Excellent. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. My name is Katie Stubblefield. I'm the Director of Youth Impact. And both WIA and WIOA both WIA and WIOA set aside funds specifically for youth programming. And so the goal is to make sure that the emerging workforce has the skills that they need to become employable and to fill the need of our local employers. We have up here a picture of kind of what our system looks like. We call it the Youth Opportunity System, and it's a network of local programs that we fund to offer these services. In Linn County, we have Community Services Consortium. In Marion County, we have Eli and also the T3 program. In Yamhill, we have Halem Family Services has the youth program, and Polk is the Halo program. So each of these programs is unique in how they operate and offer services, but they all offer the same services, even though their structures are a little different. So the individuals that we serve through this system are 16 to 24-year-olds. We previously served only up to 21 years old, so we're excited to be able to serve a broader range of people this year. And they're individuals that face barriers to employment. So they might be foster, they might have been involved in the foster system. They could be pregnant or parenting, low income. There's lots of different things that might keep them from learning the skills that they need and having the resources to become successful in the workplace. So these programs will work with them to develop resumes, learn soft skills, complete their high school education. There's 14 essential elements that WIOA dictates that the participants have access to. So while not every program or every participant is going to offer or engage in each of these services, they have to be available, and so our programs will partner with other organizations who offer them to make sure that the resources are there. So the things that they offer are tutoring, alternative school education, so we really want to make sure that they finish their high school education, whether that's a GED or diploma. Also, work experience is an important component, and that's something that WIOA emphasizes more than we had in the past. So what work experience looks like is either a pre-apprenticeship program like the Youth Build program in Linn County. We also do internships, which are through the Career Achievement Network, and Jen will share a little bit more about what that is in a little bit. On-the-job training, so what Susie was just talking about, is another chance for our young people who are 18 and older to be able to gain that experience. And then also connecting them with first-time employment opportunities. Another work experience opportunity that we have had happen is the Youth Learn and Construct program, in which we just were able to complete our first cohort of that in Yamhill County. So occupational skills training is another service that we want to make sure is available to our participants. Education, so making sure that they have the opportunity to engage in education or finish their education, but also be developing those work skills at the same time. Leadership development, which could look like community service, volunteering, just behaviors that get them involved in the community and developing those skills. We also know that with this population, it's important to have support services. So these are things like helping them with transportation. They might not have the resources to be able to get to a job, and so we can provide them with bus passes to be able to do that, as well as clothing. A lot of times our participants can't afford the correct clothing to be able to go to an interview, or tools that they need for either a job or work experience. So we can help connect them with that. Mentoring is another component that's available, and so making sure that they have someone, aside from the case manager, who is a supportive person in their life to help them navigate their decisions. And each of the programs offers 12 months of follow-up. So they come into our program, they develop an individual service plan, which is looking at their goals, their education goals, as well as their employment goals, looking at where they want to go in a long-term and also the short-term goals of how to get there. So once those have been completed, and then they exit the program, and at that point they have 12 months of follow-up. So we want to make sure that our participants have that transitionary period of being able to still have access to resources, but also stepping out on their own. Counseling is another aspect that is available to them, as well as financial literacy, making sure that they know how to develop a budget, how to manage their money. And entrepreneurial skills training is a new component that's being offered this year. Labor market information, we want to make sure that they are aware of what opportunities there are in the area and that they know how to connect with those. And the last element is around making sure that they have what they need to be able to transition into post-secondary. So we have some people who are going to go straight into work and others who are looking at a career path that's going to involve college or further education. So making sure that they know what that looks like, that they have access to be able to afford that, and then that they also have developed the skills so that they can be successful in that step. So those are our programs that we're working with. Are there any questions?
I would think also by definition the people that you most need to serve are the reason you need to serve them are hard to access. You know, they're not in the normal channel. So how do you do that? How do you find the people to serve?
Yeah, it is a difficult population to find, especially when we're talking about out-of-school youth because they're typically very unengaged. And the best way to be able to recruit someone like that is through word of mouth. So the programs that we're funding right now, we've been working with them for 6 years roughly. So they're established programs, and it's that word of mouth, that referral to friends and family members to be able to get that out is the best way to do that. We also work with schools with their dropout lists as well as the Juvenile Justice Department. So other organizations, social service agencies who serve that population, we connect with them also for referrals.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi. So, I want to talk about some of our other initiatives, the things that aren't necessarily driven by the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act, but align with it. And as we move forward over the course of the next year, one of the big things that we have to do, the work that you all will be doing and will be helping to facilitate this effort, is to go through a strategic planning process. The new Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act has a huge list of board duties, as Pam shared earlier, and a big part of that is getting through a 4-year strategic plan for our region to figure out how can we connect these systems, these people, this population group to this industry sector using new technologies. And those are some of the things we'll be working on over the course of the next year. And as we go through that, we're going to find new problems, new things we haven't thought of that will become the issues 2 years out, 3 years out. And hopefully in that process, we also find new solutions. And so as we move forward, we want to create special initiatives and we want to seek ways to test those new ideas through pilot programs and strongly evaluate each one of these pilots so that we can look back and see kind of what did we do in this test scenario to help serve this population group to get them into these type of jobs. And how did it work? Was it worth our investment? Are there things we could change to make it more efficient? Did it get the end result that we really sought after? And so those are some of the things that we're hoping to do over the course of the next few years. Some examples of things that I foresee on the horizon for this organization would be looking into innovative financing models. It's been an interest of ours that we've been researching as different ways that we can support the work of all the great programs and the way things have been shifting out. Going right off of the diagram of the decline of workforce investment funding at the federal level, we have to find new ways to finance this type of work to keep it going and to keep it going strong and effective at a high quality. And so I predict that we'll be having conversations around there, but we will see as the strategic plan continues to grow and emerge over the next year. One of the initiatives that we currently have underway is the Career Achievement Network. And this is a rather new initiative for us. We've been working on this since October of just this last year. And what the Career Achievement Network is, we call it the NET, it's an effort to connect what they call opportunity youth. So young people between the ages of 16 and 26 who are not working and not in school. And our end goal with this is to connect them to something. Ideally employment, or entrance into vocational training or college, so that we get those folks who are out there who aren't currently doing anything, may have lost hope. And we connect them to a work experience and some classroom-based training so that they can see a future and they can connect to it. And then they get put on that path that will move them forward. Through the Career Achievement Network, one of the important things to know is that it's not a program, it's a system. And within that, what it really means is that we're trying to overlay the three major components of the Career Achievement Network into a whole lot of different places and organizations and community partnerships. So the three pillars of the Career Achievement Network are a 200-hour work experience, which is a pretty good chunk of time if you think about it, a little bit more than working full-time for a month in a place. And also classroom-based training. So there's a little bit of a component where people who are going through that first-time work experience, they're going through this internship, they can have an opportunity to sit amongst their peers and talk through those difficult situations. The scenarios where I'm not sure if my supervisor thinks I'm doing this right, how do I know this? And the classroom-based training is imbued with, embedded with cognitive behavioral techniques, which connects to one of our other initiatives that Jennifer will be talking about next in more depth. But through working through that, what they're able to do is they're able to develop those soft skills. And actually, that's where the entire design from this program came from, is from speaking with employers and hearing from almost every industry sector that the biggest issue out there with the workforce, especially with the younger workforce, had to do with soft skills. And so one of the things we were thinking about is, oh gosh, how do you teach soft skills? And one of the best ways to do it, we believe, is through, in order for teaching people how to work, you have to give them an opportunity to learn how to work. And so that's why we came up with the pillars of the work experience, the classroom-based training, but also the last pillar is an evaluation that takes place every 50 hours by the site supervisor of the site that they're working on. And so with those three pillars, the Career Achievement Network can play out in a lot of different scenarios. It could play out at a for-profit business in a manufacturing environment. It could play out at a nonprofit such as Marion Polk Food Share or Union Gospel Mission. And it can play out in a lot of different communities. In this process, we also hope to connect all of the participants who go through this to another agency that can support them as they go through with a case management mentor kind of role. So in some cases, it's connections with WorkSource Oregon. In some areas, it's connection with our providers from the Youth Opportunity System. And one of the big things we'll be working on over the course of the next year is to help out the Youth Opportunity System providers, EY, HALO, Youth, Community Services Consortium, and T3, with getting their work experiences established through the Career Achievement Network. So that regionally, we're setting a standard of what it means to be job ready that gets evaluated as it plays out through the Career Achievement Network. And through this, we have this graphic that kind of displays this. Business is the backbone of the Career Achievement Network. If we're not meeting the needs of business, if we're not helping to instill these soft skills and give these participants a means to go to work and practice these skills and gain them, and if they don't have them, improve them in some cases, gain them, then that's kind of what this entire work hinges upon, is that's our overall goal, is to meet that need of business, but at the same time give the platform for these individuals to find it in whichever community that they're in. So that's some of the work with the Career Achievement Network. And next, this kind of ties over with our next initiative with Jennifer. So, pass that off. Oh, are there any questions?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you, I appreciate that. My name is Jennifer Johnson. I have now been with Incite. This coming Monday will be 6 months. So My goal with this presentation, or this talk, this conversation, is to excite you about rethinking job search. So we'll see if I can do that. But before I start talking about rethinking job search, can I ask a question? Raise your hands if you, in your businesses, organizations, or in previous businesses that you've been in, have been a part of the hiring process. Okay, so everyone here, that's excellent. How many of you, raise your hands again, have come across a struggle in finding a person for a position you've tried to fill? That it wasn't as easy as you thought it would be? Great. So now, Jen touched on this a little bit, but what we've heard from our business partners is that even when among the people that do qualify with skills, with the technical training that they need in order to actually do the job, what they are missing are these soft skills that actually help them fit in with your business and organization and thrive within that business and to do the job really well. So raise your hand a third time if this has been your experience in looking for somebody for your organization. I'm glad to hear that. So you're not alone, as you can see, we've heard this from other businesses, and I don't think Oregon is unique in this either. So when we learned this from our business partners, Incite went about doing some research. We turned to the research community and asked, what is best practice in addressing soft skills? How do we bring this kind of training or the appropriate programs and things like that to job seekers so that they are ready to enter employment with soft skills such as confidence and motivation and accountability? And the research turned up pretty minimal, especially in the United States. This hasn't been an area that's been addressed wholly. So we did find, however, that other countries have tried to address these soft skill issues. And they've been really successfully addressed in the workforce development system in the UK, in Australia, and in Canada. So when we found this out, we've connected with the partners and with organizations in all these countries to learn from them and adopt their model. So we applied for and were awarded a $3 million grant from the Department of Labor to implement the Rethinking Job Search project. Rethinking Job Search will work to address these soft skill areas that are not currently being addressed by our workforce system very well. And what this is attempting to do is to implement a series of workshops that job seekers will go through and learn these skills so that when they come out, they're able to go right into your businesses and thrive there. The best part, and if you're a nerd like me, you'll find this the best part too. The best part about this project is that it has a hefty evaluation piece. At the end of 5 years, we'll be able to tell you whether Rethinking Job Search is effective, that is, are we actually able to help job seekers get employment faster, whether the effects are lasting, that is, are they retaining employment, are they staying in your businesses longer than a couple of months, and are we able to actually save dollars, taxpayer dollars, and actually unemployment insurance dollars, that is, the taxes that the businesses pay. So we are looking to reduce those taxes as well. So the evaluation at the end of 5 years will be able to tell us those three things, and I will be excited to report that out once we get there. The other exciting part about this is that the Department of Labor is looking to Incite. The federal department is looking to us because Incite and our Oregon workforce partners are the leaders in the nation on this innovative project. It's not being done anywhere else in the United States as far as we are aware. So you are in a good position to be supporting us as we go through this, and as we see it play out across the state of Oregon. It will be implemented in 9 centers throughout the state of Oregon. So this project specifically is one that is bigger than the 4 counties that we at Incite serve. This is across the state. So it's a statewide initiative, and we get to work with statewide partners. So, having said that, I'm going to ask you for the final time to raise your hand if you are excited about rethinking job search. Awesome, thank you guys. Can I answer any questions? Yes?
I got a pretty good guess. When you're talking soft skills, can you give me kind of a broad overview of what that touches on?
Sure. So the question that was asked was if I can give an idea of what some of the soft skills are that we'll be addressing. The way that we're going about it is we're using a cognitive behavioral techniques, which is an evidence-based practice in addressing behavior change and rethinking. And some of the soft skills we'll be addressing are things such as confidence and motivation and accountability. And these are important because, especially we see in the Workstar centers with our partners that are working with job seekers, we find that there's a hierarchy of needs. So as much as they want to get someone in front of a business to have an interview, if they can't get them there because of lack of motivation, or if we can't get them there because of confidence, and if they can't present themselves well, those are the kinds of things that we're trying to address. Additionally, communication issues, problem solving, and things like that, so that when they are in employment, they know how to play nice. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, the whole, I guess, thing that I run into is really the incentive to work, to see the bigger vision of the company, being valuable to the company by having a work ethic has been probably the biggest challenge that I've run across. It's not the skill set for the particular job, but it's the skill set of being motivated and to see the bigger picture. I just didn't know if you address that as far as giving them some vision, maybe even a look from the employer's side back towards their position in order to help them understand the connectivity of this process.
So Alan's statement here was that he finds in his experience that some of that gap is the motivation and being able to see the visionary aspect of the company and playing into that. Excellent, yes, you're right. And we will address that. And I'm new to interacting with the board, but my understanding of your role in working with us is to provide some of the technical expertise from business and organizational standpoints on how best to go about the work we do. So perhaps that's an area in which our board can help us with, is how exactly we get that piece, and that visionary piece, that motivational piece, to become a part of the holistic part. And that may look like perhaps showing up at our facilitator training and speaking from a business perspective on how to communicate that piece. And that's something that we can discuss. That's all strategy building, but yes.
So with this program, how are you addressing the needs of the limited English-speaking population, especially in water?
Excellent question. So the question was, how are we addressing limited English-speaking individuals, particularly in Woodburn, with this project? So this Department of Labor grant allows us to take what we had as a pilot. So we piloted this in a couple of centers previously. And what it allows us to do is take it statewide and actually see if it works in multiple areas across geographics and demographics, and to see if we get the same results, which we did see promising results in our pilots. Part of the grant deliverables is if we do see that there is if there is an effect based on the evaluation, is that we then take it and make it culturally sensitive to other groups. So at this point, we're addressing general public. Upon seeing its effect, then we'll be able to do that, exactly. So within the next couple of years, it won't be as much, but that is the hope at the end of the grant. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. Very nice to meet you all.
So hopefully that gives you an idea of the types of things that we have going on. And I'll follow up a little bit on the question that you raised, Alan, that what we're finding with this demographic, this opportunity youth demographic, is that they think, maybe some of you have experienced this, they bring more value to the table than they actually do, so they want to start here with their pay and they don't want to do the dirty work. That plays to that work ethic piece. And when I talk about that opportunity youth demographic, age 16 to 24, not working, not in school, which here in our region we've realized that that's probably age 16 to 26. We're talking about a 10-year span of young people who are not working and not in school, which means that we have thousands of young people within our communities who have never held a W-2 job. People ask me why. It's very hard to put a finger on it. When I was 12 years old, I was pulling weeds for the neighbor to make my own money because I wanted my own money. We don't culturally push our young people out the door as much as we used to in respect to getting those first-time kinds of jobs or working for the neighbor, mowing the lawns, whatever it is. Culturally, we don't do that as much as we used to. Legislatively, it's been a little harder to put young people into certain kinds of working environments. And then we had our crash, and everybody ratcheted back a couple, right? So now you have people with degrees doing jobs that kids who got out of high school in the summertime used to do, and so forth. So I don't know exactly what it is. It might be a combination of all of those things, but what we do know is that particular population has not had the opportunity to experience what it's like to be in the workplace. So I have employers say, you know, these kids, they don't know how to be here. Well, the only way that we can teach them how to be there is to create spaces for them to be there. So in the net, our ask to the business is not, will you hire this young person? Our ask is, will you create a first-time work experience opportunity? That's a little different. Now, what's really cool about the project so far is that some people have taken those first-time work experience opportunities and then been hired, which we'd love to see, right? But what we're trying to do is create a network of first-time work experience spaces across the region so that we can address this challenge that we have in front of us to engage young people in the workforce. So I'm not going to tell you guys anything new. There's lots of organizations out there today that essentially, if you had more workers, you could do more business. You could grow your companies, right? So then we look at this demographic, this opportunity youth demographic, and the stats are nationwide, there's 6.7 million of those young people across the nation. Think about the economic impact of 6.7 million people who are not working and not in school, which means they're not fighting for their own cause, advancing their own personal self, right? And they're not contributing to any community cause. That generates a cost on society. And in this particular report called The Economic Value of Opportunity Youth, that cost is $13,900 per young person per year. So if we look at our numbers in the state of Oregon, there's roughly 60,000 of those young people that fit that demographic in the state of Oregon. So I look at this and I say, okay, I got all these employers that have many entry-level positions, and then on this hand, we've got this population, in theory, able-bodied, and we often say we have a skills training issue, which we do, but we have two major challenges. One, this is often referred to as the emerging workforce. They're not so emerging. So we have to talk them into re-engaging, and then we get to skills training. That's the space that the Career Achievement Network is trying to create. A space that catalyzes resources in support of workforce development. And if you see, I don't know if it was depicted real well on the net marketing pieces that we have up on the board, but we have a rack card that advertises the Career Achievement Network. Nowhere on that rack card will you see the Incite logo. I don't want to own it. But we had to brand it to give community something to talk about. When I was speaking to the Rotary group up in McMinnville, I held that card up and I made that point and I said, the Career Achievement Network is what you make it in this community. How many people can we bring together to align the resources that we have in our communities to get at this challenge? Now, we can continue to ignore that challenge, and just looking at the numbers for Marion County, there's roughly 5,000 to 6,000 young people that fit that demographic in Marion County alone. So, if you round that number up to 14,000 and you multiply that by 5,000 young people, that's $70 million a year it's costing taxpayers in Marion County alone for every year we choose not to address the challenge. Now here's the scary part. That's just direct cost to taxpayer. There's a big formula. If you want the report, I'll send it to you. It's got about 12 factors in there that they come up with these formulas to show this. This report was commissioned by the White House and then put together by a bunch of smart people. But the social impact, right? So the longer we allow that demographic to hang out in that space, the social impact becomes $32,000 per kid per year for every year we don't address the challenge, right? So the longer they sit there, they start getting on services, they start getting in trouble, and go down that path, right? That costs us more. So think about this. If we come together to address that challenge, it doesn't take an effect on a huge segment of that population to turn those numbers, right? Here's how that plays out. And some of you heard this, but it fits well. In one of our construction training programs in the City of Independence, we brought together 6 partners. So those of you from different communities that are in here right now, I want you to hear how cool this could be. These are the kinds of things that we can do. In Independence, the City of Independence, we did city sidewalk repair to teach kids construction trade skills. So the City of Independence identified the sidewalks that needed to be replaced. One of the partners was Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity identified the low-income families that they could raise the funds to help replace the sidewalks. Then we had 2 of the then Jog Growers funded programs, the Boys and Girls Club P3 program and the Halo program out in Independence. The students who participated, we had the SEDCOR Construction Alliance Certificate of Competency for 10 basic construction skill sets. When I found that, I thought I was in heaven because I wanted to teach construction skills, but I needed essentially a third-party validation that we were teaching the right skills. So the SEDCOR Construction Alliance was part of that effort. There were 6 partners in that effort. And the kids went out, busted out the sidewalks, learned construction trade skills by forming and measuring, cutting the forms, things like that, installing the forms, and then pouring the concrete. So you can drive through the City of Independence now, and well, I can see which sidewalks we put in because they're nice and new and shiny. But in that pilot project, that was our first project, it was 6 months long. And what we were doing was we were giving young people a chance to learn skills that could get them into the workplace. There was a young man named Jacob, and he said when he got to the program, I think I want to become a union carpenter apprentice. So what we did in that program was we scheduled for that cohort to go out to the training center in Adair, the Laborers Training Center. He learned how to get himself on that out-of-work list. At graduation, he had himself on the list. So we were very excited for him. We were encouraging him along the way. When you're on the out-of-work list for the apprenticeship program, you can't work for a non-union contractor. So he went to work for Setnicker Farm out in Independence. 2 weeks later, I get a call from the director of the program, and she says, hey, I want to let you know Jacob got a job. Well, I'm excited. This is our pilot program, and I'm looking for my poster child story, right? I call Jacob up on his cell phone. Jacob, I hear you got a job. Yeah, I'm so excited. I said, well, tell me something. How much were you making at Setnicker Farm? I said, it was $9 an hour. Which is pretty good hoop for a kid who was making 0 when he found this. I said, well, how much did you start at as a union carpenter apprentice? He said $16.97 an hour, and that doesn't include $6.67 in fringe benefits and accruing PTO that I get to keep when I have 240 hours in. It blew my mind, actually. I didn't know what they started at. I said, you went from $9 to $17 an hour? He said, yes. I'm so excited I could hear it over the phone. Here's the most compelling part of that story. Jacob was homeless couch surfing when he found our program. Sometimes people tell me that continuing education is the answer. And what I say is, when you're trying to figure out where you're going to sleep tonight and what you're going to eat tomorrow, continuing education can't even be on your radar. We have to figure this out as communities when we're trying to engage a population who has some barriers to overcome. What we've essentially said as a society is go buy your education and then you can get a good job. What I'm saying is, what if we could flip that around? What if we could say, here's an opportunity to get some skill sets so we can get you into employment right away. If we could do that, here's what could happen. 1 year later, I get a call from Sean Irvine, Economic Development of the City of Independence. He says, Tony. We've been nominated as one of 23 finalists for an All-American City Award. I'm taking 10 people to Denver, Colorado to make our final presentation. Do you think Jacob can go? Jacob had just been texting me pictures from Oregon State University where he was working for a new union contractor on this really cool project. This was just last August, so summertime, he's working. Can he go? Long story short, he could go. When he found out what he had to do, he panicked. He texted me one day and said, hey, can we meet? I don't know if I can do this. I didn't want him to back out, so I met with him for breakfast at Annette's in West Salem on a Sunday morning. I will never forget this. We were sitting at the table and he was telling me very excited about what he'd been learning and what he'd been doing. Now I have about 20 years in residential construction, a little bit of commercial project management and project construction. I was learning things from Jacob that day at that table. As he was sharing with me the things that he's doing, I was just like so impressed. Then I asked, so did you get a bump in pay when you went to work for this new contractor? Now he's a big quiet kid, so he looks down at his breakfast and he gets this sheepish grin, he fiddles with his food a little bit and he looks me in the eye and he says, I'm making $23.50 an hour now. I said, $23.50 an hour? I said that out loud. I turned heads in the restaurant. Do you know how long it took me to make $23.50 an hour in my career? And he's just grinning from ear to ear. And when I tell this story out there in the region, I ask groups this size and larger, do you know how many college kids who 1 year out of college would love to be making $23.50 an hour? And every head in the room nods. And I say, if you don't, go to Starbucks and ask them. Because we call that underemployment. Right? Here's the most powerful thing Jacob said to me next at that table that morning. He looked me in the eye and he said, thinking about going to college now. He couldn't have had that thought 1 year before, because he was trying to figure out where he was going to sleep. We have to rethink this, folks. This is the kind of challenge that this board can help to solve. We have to figure out how to put these things in the right order, because what we know is when we give young people an opportunity to get the skill sets they need to engage in the workplace, they will. And can you imagine now the difference that Jacob will have in his community of independence with the kind of earnings that he's earning now? He's not a statistic anymore. He's a powerful contributor to society. That's huge. How many times, as we work together to align our resources within our communities, can we do that? That's why we've branded the Career Achievement Network. It's just to give people something to talk about, right? Then within our local communities, we'll make it what it needs to be for the young people, this emerging workforce. When I say young people, I'm talking youth and young adults, right? For these young people to have that opportunity. If we don't have the opportunity ready, when they show up at our door, we fail. We have to have the opportunity ready when that young person is ready, right? Guess I better talk about things I'm actually supposed to talk about now. So I want to touch on the board structure. Just real quick, our board structure, right up there on the board, it's also in your packet. The Mid-Willamette Jobs Council is made up of 2 county commissioners from each county. Okay? Then they appoint the workforce board, which many of you now serve on. From that workforce board, 5 members become part of the Incite nonprofit board. And then what we're working on right now with the nonprofit board is 4 at-large members. The vision, again, of the workforce board is to be the visionary drivers of the federal investments within our region. The scope of the Incite nonprofit board is to now figure out, 1, how to run the business, but 2, to figure out how to leverage that resource. We've been a nonprofit, a 501c3 for a lot of years, and we've never acted like it. One of the opportunities that I saw coming into this organization almost 2 years ago now, getting really close, is, hey, we could leverage that 501c3. And we just hadn't gotten there yet in our thinking. And so part of the design of this structure is to allow us to think a little bit differently about how do we leverage that federal resource within our region, right? What about looking at foundation investment from Ford Family, who loves to help rural communities, or from Oregon Community Foundation, or other foundations like that, who have never really been pulled in any significance into workforce development kinds of investments. But the interesting thing about those foundations as we move forward is that they're starting to think more systemically about how they invest dollars. Well, we're a system thinking organization. We don't serve one individual, folks. We serve thousands. So the things that we engage in and the things that we build and try to do need to be thought of in that respect. We're building systems to serve thousands of people, right? Why couldn't we compel some of our local foundations to make investments with us? I think we can. We just have to appeal to that, right? So those are some of the opportunities that we have in terms of this kind of a structure and helping us think about how we can utilize the federal resources we have, but then leverage those federal resources. You'll find policies and bylaws on our website. I think, oh, there it is right there. One of the things that your board chair, Matt Lazari, has challenged me many times throughout this year on is how to improve communication with the board. And so as we were developing our website and kind of getting things set up, we asked that question a lot. We're like, how can we make the information easy for you to get to and to access and understand and start to kind of download what it is we're about. On there you'll find our success stories, you'll find blogs and different kinds of information that we're going to put up there for you. When we add new information that we want to make you aware of, you'll get an email that will likely then have a link embedded that will click you right into the website. But if you have a chance to just kind of cruise through that website and see what's there, that'll be helpful. But then too, we'll get you that link to the blog for information. That'll be our communication piece. We know you get inundated with thousands of emails and all kinds of requests for your time. We're trying to figure out how do we make it as easy as possible to get the right information in front of you as quickly as possible. Some of the other things you'll be involved in, events. Events, that's a word that's a little bit new to our organization. Nonprofits do events, but we hadn't traditionally done that because we weren't really acting like a nonprofit. So we have done a few events now, which have been kind of fun. There'll be more events that you can get involved in, and we'll reach out to you for that involvement. Things that you'll be working on, like the strategic plan, we'll be sending you a schedule. That's a lot of work. That's a heavy workload that's required by the state. You'll be involved in that. That stuff gets posted for 30-day comment, and there's a process that we'll teach you more about as time goes on here. Request for proposals. So a lot of times we'll put out RFPs. Actually, we have some coming up in the WIF grant. We need to assemble committees at times to go over those proposals. We'll pull that from you all so that you can process those requests and determine who's going to do the work for us. Let's see. So those are some of the basic things. If I just have to have a heart-to-heart with you a little bit, we need your influence. We need to be able to get your feedback in respect to how things are going out there in the region. You guys are engaged in different kinds of arenas in the employment world or serving the employment world from different aspects. We need that thinking, we need that input. We need you to consider the types of innovative things that will align more resources within our region for that common outcome, right? It might be things we haven't thought of. You heard from Pam that there's new players to the table. Well, they were in WIA. They're just more strongly compelled in WIOA to come together and participate with the TANF programs, the voc rehab, and so forth. It's interesting, as I'm out there engaging in those state level conversations, there's new people showing up at these meetings. I'm like, hey, I don't see, they're from, so there's a stronger compelling in the law to come together and have these conversations. That's different space, it's different territory, it's kind of fun. So we're learning how to engage and how to work with new partners, or new in respect to this new legislation. Any kinds of relationships and things like that that you can help to facilitate to make those partnerships stronger, huge for us. Some of the other kinds of just regular partnerships, as you think about the things we do, one of the things I'm working on right now is with Christy Perry, our new Salem-Keizer superintendent. We're the second largest school district in the state. Christy Perry and then Kelly Carlisle, her assistant superintendent, we're talking about ADM funding, which is the dollars that the state gets to educate young people, or I mean the district gets to educate young people. I've asked them for 80% of that actually, to do innovative programming to recover high school dropouts, right? Why couldn't we build those kinds of relationships? Now, under former administration with the Salem-Keizer School District, I couldn't get there. I had several conversations and it just didn't get traction. Now though, both Kelly and Christy have said, let's figure out how to do something. Let's figure out how we can potentially make that work. So I'm very excited. We're in a new space. That's the kind of thinking I'm talking about though. This workforce board has never intentionally reached out to the local school district to say, hey, is there some way to bring our two pools of resource together and make something happen that benefits everyone, right? So if they gave me 80% of their funding, which it likely may not be 80%, you gotta start somewhere. If they gave me 80% of the funding, the deal is, I'll go recover your dropouts, we'll do all the work, we'll re-engage them in GED programs, and we'll skills train them for employment, and you get the dropout recovery, and you keep 20% of the money. That's a pretty good deal in my book, I don't know, but we'll have to see how it rolls. But my point is, we can think that way now. We could do that, right? So my request to you is, what am I missing? What are we missing? When you're out there in the community and you're making your connections and you're in your circles of influence, how do we help more of this stuff work together? And we need you to do that. So I want to thank you all for coming. If you did not get your picture taken, don't leave without that, because I think we got most of you. I don't know if we're missing someone or someone's. But is there anything, Jenny, is there anything else I'm supposed to touch on? All right, well then I am going to dismiss you all and thank you all for coming. And mind you, we're almost 15 minutes early.
Hey, nice job.
Help yourself to some more food up here.